Welcome back to Spirit Squared. I'm Andrew Darrington, your host. Tonight we come to you from the Beckham Hotel here in Mineola, Texas. Thanks so much to Chris and Sarah for housing us here tonight in their cigar lounge. I love being here. It's such an intimate space. Love to have our guests super close by so that way we can get the 401 on what they have going on. First and foremost, we'd like to thank our sponsors. We've got Red Construction. Thanks so much, Thomas and Martha. We've got the Vault and the Humidor. Thanks so much, Blake and Virginia, for your sponsorship. And then we have Hoot and Holler. Thanks so much, Scott, for your sponsorship. What you guys have done for us has allowed us to upgrade our equipment and obviously get us place to place and expand our footprint of what we're doing. Thanks so much for having the confidence in our podcast style, and really appreciate your continuing support of what we're doing. Tonight, we've got Matt Gaskill from Gaskill Knives.
Hello.
On the podcast. Looking forward to what we have to talk about. It's going to be super exciting. But before we get started, we've got E.H. Taylor small batch that we've poured. You guys know that I love a good pour. E.H. Taylor is one of those kind of bottles that you don't see very often on shelves. It's allocated. That's kind of the word that bourbon folks use. It's a little bit more for me because in my lineage, we crossed paths. My maiden name is Taylor. I ran the genealogy, and it just so happens my great-grandfather's great-grandfather was E.H. Taylor. And so when I first got into bourbon, I just got hot and heavy into E.H. Taylor. I just liked the flavor. I loved the canister. And then I ran the genealogy and just meant even more. So it's a special pour for me. So I had a little bit for you. Salud. Thanks for coming all the way from Fate, Texas.
Yeah, not too far.
Yeah, not too far. So talk to us a little bit about how things started. You were heavy into woodworking before 2015, correct?
Correct. I was into a lot of hobbies. I've always been a person that works with their hands, always trying to build something or fix something. Before woodworking, I had an old Bronco that was my grandfather's also, and and I tore it down and never put it back together, actually. So got rid of that, and then I got into woodworking. I got into it pretty heavy, just building picture frames, end tables, and I was in a project, took me almost a year, a big kitchen table, like farmhouse kitchen table, where I kind of exercised everything I had learned in woodworking. And I built the thing almost with no screws. It was all joined together with biscuit joints and chiseled holes to run the boards through each other. I forget all the terminology now because that was back in 2015. But that kind of burned me out. That table did actually, and all the sawdust and everything I made from it. And I was like, kind of wanted to get into something else. And then I remembered I had this old grinder that my grandfather had passed away. He was a knife maker, and so was his brother. He passed away while I was in college. Early on, as a kid, I would hang out in his shop and stuff and see him working on stuff. I never really worked on anything. I was young. And then, but I inherited the grinder and a couple drill presses. Yeah, I'd been using the drill presses for the woodworking, but the grinder we put in storage for a while. Went and got it back out, and decided to look up and see, because he was also a gunsmith as well. So I was going to see what he really used this grinder for, and I realized this grinder is primarily used for knife making. And I was like, all right, that sounds fun. A lot less sawdust. Mm-hmm. At the time, I thought it would be a smaller footprint needed, because I was doing this all out of my garage at the time. So I fired it up. My brother-in-law was kind of into knives at the time too, and we decided we got the minimal stuff we thought we needed to make knives successfully, So we cranked out a couple over that weekend, and I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Posted a couple pictures online. Had people interested in buying them all of a sudden and stuff. So I was like, all right, maybe this is somewhere I can go with this, So I immediately started selling my woodworking stuff. Selling it or donating it, whatever I could, to make more room for other tools, and started buying knife stuff, and made a few more knives, sold a couple, posted more pictures, and before I knew it, I had a list. Like I had like over 100 people basically saying they were interested. You know, a lot of friends from whether it be high school, college, professional relationships. You know, so.
Do you think it was more about you making these, or do you think that there was something unique about what you were making?
It was probably more about me at first, you know, because there was nothing unique, you know. When you make a knife, it's pretty hard to make a completely unique knife. They've been made for so many years, you know, and you can always find something that looks pretty close to something, if you ask me. But I think it was just, you know, people were interested. Hey, I got a friend that's making knives. I want to buy one.
Yeah, support them.
So it kind of blew up pretty quick with that list. And the list was good and bad, you know, it said that, hey, I got people interested, I have work set out in front of me, but it's also, now I felt like I was locked into that list, you know what I mean? And when you're making something that somebody else is kind of giving you the parameters on, it makes it a little bit harder to want to do it because you're not expressing your artistic...
individualism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but to step back a little bit, I started just cranking them out in my garage. We used a method. It was called. There's two kind of methods to knife making. There's stock removal, and then there's forging. A lot people will start in both arenas. Stock removal is basically you take a chunk of steel and you remove everything that's not a knife. Basically, heat treat it, put handles on it, finish it, and everything. Forging is you take a piece of steel and you heat it and hammer it to the shape of a knife, and then remove the rest of the stuff that's not a knife. You know, you go into basically stock removal, but with a lot less to remove. So I started out with stock removal because I had the grinder, didn't have a forge. Well, technically, when we started, we did buy a small forge to do the heat treating in.
Yeah.
But we quickly learned that it really wasn't adequate. So turns out I went and played poker at a neighbor's house, like I think the week before I started making knives, and I was talking to somebody there. This guy had made knives also. He had been making for a few years, and he just lived across the lake from me. So he ended up heat treating a lot of my knives for the first couple months for me.
Right.
So I was learning until I saved up enough money to buy a heat treat oven. So that was my first big purchase on my own. You know, was a heat treat oven.
Vault Arms is your premier destination for all things firearms. Extensive selection of handguns, rifles, shotguns, and accessories. Knowledgeable staff to assist you in finding the perfect firearm to fit your needs. State-of-the-art gun range equipped with the latest technology for a safe and thrilling shooting experience. Take advantage of our professional shooting instruction and training programs suitable for all skill levels. Host your next group outing, corporate event, or bachelor party at our spacious and secure shooting facility. Committed to promoting responsible gun ownership and firearm safety. Fully licensed and compliant with all state and federal regulations.
You mentioned your grandfather. You brought some stuff, right?
Absolutely.
That he had made on the grinder that you inherited, right?
I assume he did. It's hard for me to tell, you know, because so when I got into knife making for a while, and then I started just randomly Googling, trying to find his knives because there's like one left in the family. My mom has it up on her shelf.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I need to start finding these out there. And so his brother made a lot more knives. So my grandfather was Dale, and the brother was Bill or William, and William Wood and Bill Wood, William Wood and Dale G. Wood. So I started looking up those maker marks, basically trying to find them on eBay or through collectors. And I found this one collector that he had reached out to them in the early 80s and had them both build them a dagger, which was pretty cool. So this one collector had a knife from both of them. So I got the knives here.
Awesome.
So this is the one my grandfather actually made.
Wow.
So
look at that.
Yeah, it's got pearl handles.
D.G. Wood. Yep.
Dale G. Wood. Yep. So
wow.
That's his maker mark, which is it's hard to find knives because the word wood is like in the description of many knives. So it's like, all right, well, it's kind of challenging, you know.
That's super cool. And it's even what are these called?
Pins?
Yeah, the pins are kind of, they're straight, but you can tell they're custom made.
He used a lot of, he was very flashy in his designs, used a lot of pearl, a lot of inlay type stuff. He had found, he had gone to some dried up lake at some point and picked up a whole load of pearl, so he put it on all his guns and knives and everything. So this is the one that his brother made.
Yeah, his brother was more more straightforward. I think it's interesting that D.G. Wood, who is your grandfather,
Yes.
right, and his William
W.W. Wood,
Wood
yeah.
is, he stamps his, and D.G. writes his.
Well, this, throughout the years that changed.
Okay.
So he eventually started stamping his own
Okay.
with just letter stamps, not like one made, or that was actually probably an etch, an electrochemical
Okay.
etch on that one. So my grandfather did start stamping his. So these were made, so with it, I got all these envelopes full of correspondence from the guy. And I open it up upside down. But basically, so he had to reach out to him and write him letters and send back flyers and stuff back and forth. So these were all the letters describing about how he does it and what the options are. And these are some flyers. There's even a, this is really cool, like on a brown paper sack was
Oh, wow.
the sketch that he sent to him saying, this is the knife I'm making you. So,
Wow.
yeah, pretty neat, you know, that this guy kept all this. And then now I have it. So then throughout here, you can, you see these letters.
Right.
It's funny, like Dale G. Wood, Route 1, Seymour, Texas. That was his address. It's kind of funny.
Yeah,
Just your
that's-
name and Route 1.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But all these typed out.
Definitely a 911 address.
Typed out. So this is all, he reached out to him, and I was born in September of 1980, and this is when he built it too.
Wow.
He started the process like 2 weeks after I was born.
Yeah.
So that's even, I thought that was really cool. And then the one that he got from my uncle, William Wood, that was later on, I think in like 83.
Yeah, it does. Definitely looks like it's a little bit further down the line, but
And I think,
man, the craftsmanship on these is just so symmetrical. It's they're awesome. So cool, man.
yeah. So this was a pretty awesome find, and the documentation made it, even better.
Yeah,
So that was
absolutely.
cool.
So you get started in doing this, and you've got a list of 100 people. Obviously, there were some successes and some failures through that time.
Oh yeah, luckily I still have a day job that pays my bills and pays for most of the knife making right now.
Right.
So
And you said that somebody was making them with you, right? Your brother? Or?
he did like the first weekend kind of, and he came back another time.
Okay.
But he's a big time hunter and everything, and that's where he puts his time and money and everything into hunting.
Gotcha.
When I had kids, I was like, I chose fishing over hunting because it was a little bit cheaper, and I wouldn't be gone for weekends at a time.
Yeah.
We had twin boys right off the bat, so it was my time at home on the weekends was important. So, but he's big time into hunting and stuff, so he kind of didn't follow up with it.
Right.
Or anything, so.
You need to check out our this is like third or fourth podcast with David Frisbee. He's got some pretty good stories
Okay.
about hunting and,
Oh, cool.
and going through the Grand Slams and all that good stuff. It's pretty interesting. He also went on like some kind of crazy yak hunt in Indonesia where he's traveling with Mongolians that speak Russian for days, and then they kill the yak and they're coming back. It's pretty
Some
cool.
of the stuff they had to go through, like
Yeah. Those guys
I know
are
somebody,
fanatical, man.
you know,
They're
go hunt in
taking
Afghanistan,
tallies
they
of
have to-
different things.
they had to like tan and like dye their hair, and
Yeah.
put in contacts so they don't have blue eyes walking
Yes.
around Afghanistan and stuff. Stuff like to find.
And they're
goat
killing
and
certain
stuff.
type of silent goats and these other kind of goats that they have to spend 5-6 days to go kill. I mean, it's crazy what some of those folks go through. So I commend them for doing it. I just wouldn't do it. Right. So talk to us a little bit about some of the failures that when you first got into knife making, you ran into, or that you may not have gone through per se, but you learned from someone else, like, hey, don't do this. This is
Well, so I'm the type of person that before I jump into something, I study it really heavily. So I had watched many YouTube videos, read some books. I just, I didn't have it all down, but I had a pretty good idea of how it worked. And I think that set a decent foundation for me starting out, because the first few knives I made were pretty decent. Nothing like I make now,
yeah.
but they were pretty decent. And to be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of just. When you have a day job, basically, and this
Right.
doesn't have to feed your family, it's, when you screw up, it's like, oh well, you know what I mean? I have a pile of knives that I've made mistakes on, just trying different things, but nothing that just like really set me back. I didn't have, I'm blessed in that manner that I didn't have any like huge setbacks. Now I have hurt myself a few times. Those are setbacks. I've broken a finger. I've put a knife through my hand here. Nearly came out on this side. That was not making knives. That was cutting zip ties at a Pinewood Derby. So it started squirting blood over the Pinewood Derby place. And I was the guy that taught knife safety. Yeah, right. So
Right.
and that guy's the one that ends up in the hospital with a 4-centimeter hole in his hand.
Right.
But so yes, I've had that happen. I dropped a knife on my foot and didn't know I did anything to it until later. I went to walk and I was here, the squishing of the blood inside the
Yeah.
shoe. Luckily both of those didn't hit anything. I've heard horror stories about dropping knives on foot where
Sure.
people are down in kitchens,
Cutting the
professional
off or
kitchens.
whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes down to problems, those injuries have probably been the biggest setbacks. And of course, I've made mistakes on knives and stuff, but it was just part of the learning process. So
What do you think is a common error that's made?
common error is early on. I see this in a lot of early knife makers. It's just not paying a lot of attention to the final fit and finish of the knife. It's kind of, I want to get it. People I think want to get it done. You know what I mean? And there's a saying out there. It's like the last 10% is 90%, basically.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of the way it is. It's follow through with everything. Make sure that all your finishes are consistent. Symmetry is huge in knives.
Yeah.
Everything has to be symmetrical. And if it's not, from the foundation, when you grind the knife, and if it's not symmetrical and you heat treat the knife, it's going to warp because there's more steel on one side than there is the other. So it's going to walk off to one side. That's going to give you problems during the rest of the build for that knife. You get to straighten it and constantly try to make sure it's straight. Because you put that warp in there because you weren't paying attention early on.
Yeah.
So, but that's really the biggest thing I see. Is even my first few knives, you can tell they were rushed. I could nitpick the tar out of them and see all sorts of problems with them.
Right.
And you still can't today. Not nearly as many though.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get through the first wave of folks, and did you take a step back and go, okay, let's do something serious with this? Or
Well, so I got well over 100 people on the list, and I can only make, at the time it was only like 30 a year, 40 a year. So that's, you can look into the future and look at 3 years before I can even clear this
Yeah.
up. So
that's forecast for 3 years.
and it kept growing, and so finally I just said one day, like, I'm not taking another order. It's done. I'm gonna work through these, And through the list, I've had probably only maybe 10% say, I'm not interested, at the end, and that's totally fine with me. They just shown interest, and I said, okay,
Right.
I'll put you down, So I'm still got a few people on that list, in all honesty, right now.
Wow, really?
Yeah, there's still a few people left on it, and I've added a few here and there and moved stuff around. But I got to the point where I just want to make stuff and sell it. That's kind of where I wanted to go. And some of my larger customers and stuff, they get some preferential treatment, of course.
Sure.
They, if they want something special, they get it, But for the most part, I've been trying just to make knives, take them to shows, and sell them at shows, and do a few in between here and there.
Yeah.
So I started doing shows 2 years ago. I did Blade Show Texas, which is in Fort Worth, and that was in March 2 years ago. And then I did Blade Show West, which is in Salt Lake City, and that's in October. So I did that for 2 years. I did those two shows. This year I'm switching it up. I did Blade Show Texas, which they added another ballroom to it, so they went from, I think, around 350 custom makers to 500.
Oh, wow.
But they moved it to February, and so they could get that extra room.
Yeah.
So that was this year. It was in February. Next year we'll be back to March, and then Atlanta, Blade Show Atlanta is coming up the first weekend of June. That's what I'm ramping up for right now, and there'll be close to 1,000. I think 1,000 custom makers there. I don't know how many hundreds.
What does it look like to build up for that? Do you have to make quite a few knives, or is it more just displaying like what you do, how you do
No,
it?
it's you make knives and sell them.
Okay,
You get them in
okay.
people's hands.
Okay.
People to come by, meet you. It's a lot about networking.
Yeah.
I would be happy if I've sold out Texas the last 2 years. It's been great.
Yeah.
But like my second year at Texas, I sold out in an hour and a half, and it was.
Well, it's a good feeling, but it's kind of.
It
like,
is, but then also I don't have anything to do for 2 days.
Right.
I don't have any knives to show people.
Right.
So you miss that networking.
Yeah.
Opportunity there. So, yeah, you want to have a few knives on the table for most of the time, right? So, and now I have my production line also, which I can bring some of those and have them off to the side also.
Right.
Say, hey, this is my design. I did not hand make it. But,
Yeah.
Here
You had somebody.
it's lower price. It's very high quality, very high quality knife, but it's just not. It's not handmade by me.
Right.
And I also usually bring. Now I started making this as a scalpel model,
Oh yeah, that's cool.
and it's got a little pocket sheath. Kind of fits in your pocket like a pocket knife would.
Yeah.
Very handy, very light, and those are partially handmade. That's kind of what they call a mid-tech knife, maybe. I have it water jetted, so I have a company out of Utah cut the shape out, but then I come in and round all the edges, heat treat it, grind the bevels, do all that work to it, and tumble it and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's awesome looking, man.
Now I have a friend at Union Leather. He came up with a design for the sheath.
Yeah.
So he cuts this out with a laser and stitches it all up, and then we sell those. So I usually bring about 10 of those as well. So that'll help fill the table, when
Right.
the other stuff sells out.
You got the majority of your stuff that you bring to that? Are they custom or are they production?
So the last show I brought, I think 11 100% handmade knives.
Yeah.
10 of these and 10 of those.
Gotcha.
So, and I didn't sell out of those. I sold a couple of them, but people that were coming to my table were coming for my handmade stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So what motivated you to launch Gaskill?
Well, when I first started, the interest and everything, I needed a brand basically. So,
Right.
And
You didn't want to stamp Matt on every blade, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, at first I had this logo. I'm not the best graphic designer or anything, so I had like the state of Texas with a G and a K in the middle, and then people were calling it GK Knives. I'm like, well, that's not what it is. It's Gaskill Knives, but I didn't want that, so that went by the wayside pretty quick. And then I reached out to a buddy who had done a lot of logo work and graphic design at different churches throughout the years, and he is actually the guy that owns Union Leather. So I traded him a knife for making me a logo. So he came up with a few logos, and we ended up.
Oh, very cool.
So all my knives that are handmade will say Gaskill handmade on them,
Yeah.
and then all the other whether it be packaging or apparel and stuff will say Gaskill Knives on them.
Gaskill Knives. Yeah.
And then my production knife says Gaskill Knives. It doesn't say handmade on it. So that's So I launched the website, or I launched the brand. Then I had a few people back then that weren't on Facebook or Instagram and wanted to see my stuff. So I was like, okay, I threw up a website that basically regurgitated my Instagram feed. You know,
Gotcha.
so it basically would just read off of it, throw pictures up there, so I didn't have to maintain a site for too much. You know what I mean? And those people could see the work I do. You know.
I'm gonna help our guy out back behind the cameras. You want some of this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I forgot to offer it to you earlier.
That's good.
Oh, I forget. Yeah, it's pretty good.
If you are looking for a reputable builder with a proven track record and a client base to back it up, give Red Construction and Development LLC a call. Red Construction offers full design build services for new construction, custom homes, and remodeling with free site evaluations. They have an A+ rating with the BBB and are proud members of the Tyler Area Builders Association, Texas Association of Builders, National Association of Home Builders, and the Lindale Area Chamber of Commerce. Red Construction and Development LLC stands behind the exceptional quality of their work and have the expertise, the resources, and dedication to deliver the results you need on time and on budget. To learn more, give them a call at 903-630-8660 or visit them online at redconstructiondevelopment.com.
We were still.
So we're talking about the Gaskill Knives website,
Yeah.
I guess, and the brand.
So who helped you with some of the development of that website?
I did it all. I'm a software engineer.
Okay,
so
that's right.
Just back in the day, right out of college, a buddy of mine and I, we did a little website company and posted a few websites and did some design here and there, and then got completely out of that. And then nowadays, it's pretty easy to make a website with all the tools they have now. You know, whether it be Squarespace or Shopify, or you know, they got the templates, and you just plug and play your stuff in there, and it usually works out pretty good. They have a bunch of plugins and stuff to make it easy. So slowly built up the website. I needed a way to be able to charge people and ship and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
Shopify was kind of one of the most knife friendly services out there. So their policies and stuff like that weren't, they didn't have a problem with it, so that's why I chose them to go with, and built up that site, built up a YouTube channel for a while as well.
Oh,
I probably
okay.
have a dozen or two videos out there and a few shorts, but mostly on how to make a knife, how to do this, how I do this, that kind of stuff.
Sure. I did run into a couple of those.
You had mentioned that calculator that was on the website.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'm kind of known for in my knives, and it's crazy I don't have a knife with it on here right now with me, but the tang on a knife, which is the steel that runs down here, I'm known for tapering it. So you see how it tapers from here to here? I taper it from here to here on this side.
Okay.
So it takes the weight out. And
So it thins it out.
It thins it out. And a lot of my knives this size will be 3-4 ounces. And when people pick them up at shows, they're like, oh wow, I didn't expect, I expected that to be a lot heavier.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of the things I'm known for, is tapering my tangs to a very thin edge down here. So I did a video on how I did it. And to do that, you have to do a little bit of trigonometry to set up your tooling right. And I was doing that on paper for the longest time, so then I just made a calculator through the website and provided that to people to use.
Right, yeah.
And evidently it gets used quite a bit, because I took it down for a little while when I was switching hosts, and I was getting emails immediately, where'd it go? I was like, shoot, I'm sorry, I didn't know if anybody was
Just for
using
clarity,
it.
on your website, you've got quite a few different links that you can hit, and I think it's like the 5th or 6th link, or column that you can hit.
Tools. And
tools,
calculator.
There's a calculator there, and I was like, okay, well, what's going on here?
But then you get
This is way more advanced than what I can figure out. For sure.
That's just a tool out there for other knife makers to use. I do have a page on there about my pricing, because it's everybody has their different ways of coming up with pricing and stuff. But I needed something somewhat standardized, and so I didn't have to quote people all the time. And people, some people will reach out to me and they're like, oh, dang, never mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that also eliminates that not embarrassment, but like, that, oh, that's a lot of money. I can't pay that right now or whatever. You know what I mean? So I put it out there with some examples.
I want to support you, but not that much.
Yeah, they thought maybe it's gonna be $100, no, $600 for a knife. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and that allows me to keep that updated, and people know, this is my price. If you want one of my mono steel knives, I think it says $40 per inch, and then you upgrade to a nice wood, that's usually another $50, and the sheath is this much.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much piece exactly what you want together, and you know how much you're going to spend, so.
Right.
And I got a few examples up on there that say, this is how I calculated the cost for this knife, so.
Yeah.
Helps them out in that manner. What else is on the website? I got a store that has my production knives, and when I do have some customs for sale, which I try to every once in a while throw 5 up there, and then I have a newsletter that you can sign up for on my website as well, and that newsletter will
alert you.
Yeah, that'll be the first, that's the first people I alert is the newsletter, and I have a Facebook group also called the Gaskill Knives Collective.
Right.
And so those two groups will be notified first, and then basically everything sells at that point.
Right.
From one of those two methods. I usually don't have to I don't think I've ever had to actually post on Instagram. And I try not to because Instagram doesn't want you selling knives on there, and so I try to follow their rules, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I try to use Instagram as a tool to show my art, essentially.
Yeah.
And how I do stuff, so.
Is there, when you're done making a custom knife, obviously a lot of guys and girls display them and or collect them. Has there been anybody that has sent you video or feedback of like some stuff they've done with their knives that you're like, damn, I'm proud of what it did here. Obviously, when you're crafting a knife, you're hoping for symmetry and perfection, and the blade being as good as it can be, and great
Heat treat on point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an art, but it's for use, right? So tell us a little bit about some things that you've seen, feedback or uses that kind of maybe just be generic, or it could be something that.
I will say early on, there were some people I followed. One guy was named Sean Hatchery. He's out of Austin. He's a maker there, and I really liked his style. And I could always, when I saw a knife come by, I knew it was his. I didn't have to zoom in to see who the maker was. I just knew it was his. I was like, that's a goal of mine. And another goal is I want them to be carried. You know what I mean? So what can I make them? How can I make them to be carried as well? You know what I mean? So I make them lightweight because so people don't.
Yeah.
I had a guy this weekend tell me, he's like, that knife, he had one of my earliest knives also, and he's like, that one's pretty heavy, but your newest one, like, I can't even tell I'm carrying it, and that's exactly what I want. And I've had many people come to shows and give me feedback and say, like, when I see your knife, I just know it's yours. It's your style, I can pick it out. So it's like 2 of my goals recently, in the last couple of years have been kind of hit, which is awesome. I've gotten some pretty cool pictures back and stuff, all sorts of hunting trips, all over the world and stuff like that. People take them. One of these scalpels went on a trip to West Texas recently with a conservation organization. A friend of mine has a production company, and he took one.
Make sure you're talking to Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
He took
we're losing a little bit.
Sorry, no. He took one of these scalpels out on a hunt.
Yeah.
And took the head off of an oodad with just the scalpel.
No,
in the field, which is pretty.
Really?
Like all the way to the neck.
Holy moly!
Yeah, so it was pretty wild that he did that. So that was pretty cool. You get here and there feedback. I had one. I made a couple big kukris in the past. I had one come back all beat to tar, even chipped out a little bit, and I was like worried. I was like, whoa, I messed up on this.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no, he has some land out in Arkansas that has, I think it's limestone or something that's beneath the dirt, and he was clearing brush. He kept going into the dirt and hitting this really hard stone, so my knife's not harder than granite, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Something's going to give eventually, right?
Sure.
No matter how good you hit your heat treat. So, no, we've had, you get feedback like that. I got some other stories. One guy, he was out varmint hunting, and he had shot at a rabbit. I don't know if he hit it or missed, but it came right at him. Like charged him. It's funny. He said he had night vision on. It was coming right at him, and he was down on the ground. And he didn't know what to do, and he just pulled out my knife and swung down. And he said, like the night vision was just like blacked out everywhere, like green all over the place. Didn't know what was going on. Took it off, blood everywhere. He said, He said he went right through it, like all the way through it. Like a complete cross section, spine, everything.
Right.
Cut it right.
Christian Bale moment.
Yeah.
Just sliced them up.
It's like, whoa.
Right.
He's like, I couldn't even get a picture. It's like, there's just too much blood. He couldn't hold on to anything, so it was pretty funny. But you know, you get stories like that in use, and you get stories. I've made a few kitchen knives, you know, and you get to see those and stuff too.
Yeah.
Don't do a lot of kitchen knives, but I have friends that are chefs and stuff that want them, so I'll do some here and there.
Is there a favorite knife that you make, or is there? Let's just start there. Like, is there a favorite knife that you make? Let me say this: is there like a fan favorite?
There is a fan. The model that I have there, that's my production knife, is made after. It's called the Estes, or it's called the Tanner. Sorry, and it's a standard everyday carry, good size. You know, I'm typically known for shorter handles too, because I like you to be able to carry them. And when you have a long handle, it's hard.
Why
to carry.
is it important to you that somebody carries one?
I want them to use them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to be a safe queen. You know.
Okay.
And when people use your knives, it's also they get seen by other people.
Sure.
You know, so I would rather be out there. You know. You don't want to make a shirt and nobody wear it. You know, because it's too nice or something. You know what I mean? You like wear it to every year to a wedding or something. You know what I mean? So I want my stuff out there, but also be, you know, nice stuff to collect.
Sure.
My second probably right hand in hand, is a model called the Estes, and it's a similar size, but it's kind of like a little mini Bowie knife. You know, and it's got a clip point on it, and it's very lightweight too. It's one of those that's deceiving. People pick up a lot, and they're like, "Oh, wow, I like this." A lot of times
you called a clip point. It's a gut side.
No, clip point is
where it's got a hook at the end.
No. I don't do hook. So this is kind of a semi drop point here.
Okay.
But a clip will come up here and then go like this.
Oh, okay.
So like if you see your typical Bowie knife,
kind of sloped it down.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then a swedge is when it comes up and down. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
So.
All right. Cool. I'm learning.
And
so, which one of those do you prefer? They're not the same.
Honestly, I've never actually carried the Estes personally, so I couldn't tell you, but it sells a lot. It's a very popular model. It's what people like. So.
Yeah.
And then along with this, a lot of times the smaller knives too are just they're fun to get in people's hands because people like the small stuff. You know.
I mean, to have that type, like, for that to do what you just said it did. That's crazy.
And I use a steel so in my production knife and in the scalpel, I use a steel called MagnaCut. It's a new steel that's come out in the last few years.
Okay. I was just about to ask you about that.
I'll give you
what kind of steel do you like?
Well, I like this for these applications, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So a quick story behind it. There's actually two twins, older guys now, that were knife makers. You know, they would be my dad's age, you know, and I think Devin and Darren Thomas, and
You gotta bring this down.
oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good. We just need to pull it over here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
You like just talking to the
Yeah.
You like talking to the people.
Sorry, I'm not.
No, you're good.
My first podcast was on a computer, so it's.
Oh man, that's I don't like the Skype or the whatever Zoom or any of that stuff. I mean, I'll do one, and we've done a couple of those, but I don't prefer them because you don't get that connectivity and
Agreed.
where we're talking about just different things and getting down to stuff. So you're on a computer, you're just talking to a camera or you're talking to a screen, really. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I just want to make sure you get heard.
So Devin had a son named Laren who went to all the shows with him, but didn't. He wasn't really. I can't say this, but really wasn't into knife making. But he went to get, I think, his PhD in chemistry and metallurgy. So, he's educated on the stuff. He works in the industry, has the tools available to him to test all the different steels, and he eventually, you know, long story short, came up with a formula for a new knife steel that could be very stainless, very high hardness, and tough at the same time. So that's kind of your goal in a knife. Steel is, you know, can you get it hard and can it stay tough? You know, because you have this scale on one side really hard, a knife will typically chip out. You know, it's brittle.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, it can be tough. You can hammer on it, but it's also soft and it'll bend. So you always look for somewhere in the middle, and you want to get to the hardest part, but you don't want it chipping and stuff. So there's a hardness scale that they use for knives, you know, and a lot of your older steels and your high carbons and stuff would be good around, you know, 60, 61. But this stuff can go up to 63 and still be very tough and hold that edge for a long time. I got this, you know, I released my production knife in October. I haven't sharpened this, and it's still very sharp, and I've used it pretty much every day.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a really good steel. Now, on the other hand, as a knife maker, it's abrasion resistant, and it's hard to work with, handmade.
I see.
So I made one handmade knife with it. I made a big fillet knife, and it was awesome. But at the end, I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to be using this every day because it's just too time consuming, you know.
Right.
And to put the finish I want on it.
Gotcha.
Because
it's not easy to work with.
So
but it's easy to machine.
Machine, exactly.
Gotcha.
So I do it on these. I do it on this scalpel because I don't hand finish this bevel here, so it's off the machine.
Damn, I should have ordered a scalpel.
We'll
get one.
No,
we'll get
one. I don't have any right now. So.
We'll get one in the works.
I got a batch of 40 I'm working on right now. So.
That looks awesome, man.
Yeah, and that's the knife.
I mean, because you could use that for virtually anything. You could do that for fishing, hunting.
Absolutely.
It's very lightweight, versatile. You could do anything as mundane as just like cutting your fishing line.
Oh, absolutely.
Or cutting a box open or something like that, and it's easy to wear.
You know, I work from home. I wear a lot of times I'll wear just workout shorts or sweats or whatever, you know. But a lot of times any kind of weight in your pocket, you know, pulls them down. You know, but this clips, you just clip it to your pocket, and it's, you know, weighs a little over an ounce.
The Humidor is your online cigar retailing headquarters. Our experienced staff has spent years finding some of the best cigars from around the world to sell to our customers. If you're looking for an online cigar store that can help you find your next favorite smoke, welcome to the Humidor. We began the Humidor because of our deep appreciation of the finer things in life, a good conversation with friends, an aged whiskey, and, of course, a fine smoke. That's why, in addition to selling premium cigars online, we also operate a brick-and-mortar cigar lounge in Tyler, Texas. Our lounge is crafted to provide a classic ambience with modern sensibilities, and we've spent time ensuring that smokers and non-smokers have an enjoyable experience, whether they're there for a drink with friends or to enjoy the game.
So what's the steel that you like working with whenever you're doing a custom knife?
So my custom knives will all be CPM 154 or RWL 34, which are two steels that are very similar formulas. One's a little bit cleaner than the other, but the other one's harder to find than the other. So I bounce them back and forth between those when I'm using a stainless steel.
Okay.
Within the last few years, I started forging and making my own Damascus and Sanmai and stuff. So with those steels, I use all high carbon steels, not stainless, so I can get those contrasts. And stainless steels work at a lot higher temperature, and they're just a lot more challenging to forge or to weld together. So I use high carbon steels for that. So for my high carbon steels, I'll use a lot of ADCRB2, which is a pretty decent, just all around high carbon steel. And in my Damascus, I'll also use a contrasting layer is 15 and 20, which is a very common steel to use for Damascus. So Damascus is multiple layers, and you etch it and you bring out a contrast.
Right.
And when you etch it, one steel will have a higher nickel content in it, and that will resist the etch.
Right.
So one will dig in and get dark, and the other one will kind of stay proud and shiny. So that's where you get that contrast. So that 15 and 20
look.
Yeah, so that N in the 15 and 20 is the nickel, and that's what creates that contrast. So
yeah, it's cool, man. So so I guess it just depends on what the order looks like.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And like right now,
Or what you're trying to like accomplish with the show.
yeah, I go,
right?
yeah, I go through little waves of like, oh, one year I did a whole bunch of sand mice. The sand mice is like 3 layers of steel, so you
Yeah.
have one on each, like a sandwich bread, and then the meat in the middle. And the bread is usually like a stainless that polishes real high contrast, and then the center is a dark black, you know, and you get
Yeah.
a really cool,
Oh yeah.
real cool pattern in between them where they kind of blend together, where they weld and stuff. So that's really neat. Right now for Blade Show in Atlanta, I'm looking at getting. I had a guy that wanted a knife with a hamon, and I haven't done that in a while. And the hamon is, you can basically put clay on the steel when you heat treat, and it puts a pattern, a line that basically, when it goes into quench into the oil, I don't know if you've seen Forged in Fire or anything, or when they quench in the oil, it basically changes the rate at which those 2 pieces of steel cool.
Okay.
So with the clay around it, it works as, it kind of insulates it a little bit and slows down that part, and then the other part hardens a little bit faster. So it creates a line in there. So this, I'm working on a few knives for Blade Show that are going to have hamons in them. So,
Wow.
and I'm using 2 other completely different steels. I didn't mention W2 and 26C3 is the other steel I'm going to try to use for that. So,
W2 1040, right?
Hmm?
No, I'm kidding.
no, it's
W2.
W. Yeah, there you go. No. Well, it's funny you say 1040 because they do have 10 series steels, so like 1080, 1085, 1075, 1095.
Wow.
So you said that, but yeah, those are a series of steels as well. So
There's so much fun stuff you could do. I mean, it's limitless, really. I mean, the type of blades you can put on things, the type of cuts you can, and then the steels that you can add together, and then whatever you want to do with it from there, right?
no, you can get very creative with the Damascus stuff and basically make a mosaic pattern, kind of like some of the roof tiles or ceiling tiles we've seen throughout this hotel. You know, like you can design one of them and then you can checker them around and you can make a big pattern out of it and make some big explosive patterns and different basket weave type patterns.
Right.
So the last show I did 2 basket weaves and 2 mosaic
Wow.
explosion patterns. Those
Nice.
was my first time on those too.
So do you find yourself wanting to maybe test the market a little bit with some things?
I'm always wanting to try something new.
Yeah, yeah, I would
It's
assume
like,
so.
That's
I
the
mean,
artist in me. And
but I mean, if you're going to the same shows,
Mhm.
then you're kind of doing what you've gotten feedback from, right? So you're going there with kind of the stuff that people have
works.
asked for. So if you're going back to the Texas show, then you're just bringing stuff that you know will do well. But if you're going somewhere new, then maybe you're testing the market a little bit, or are you reaching out to people and saying, hey, what's this market into, or
In reality, most of the markets are pretty similar. The show in Utah, like I said, it was supposed to be more kitchen oriented, but it's there's plenty of hunters in Utah and the surrounding states. So I'll try to bring my baseline, like 5 of my baseline knives. Just a mono steel, lower price point, and then I'll bring another 4 or 5 of the high end, and I'll just mix it that way. And if something just doesn't sell, it's usually probably handle material that just doesn't catch
Yeah.
people's eyes quite as much, or a size that maybe a little bit too big. One year I brought a couple larger knives and they didn't sell as well. So it's hit or miss sometimes, but once you get a following and stuff, somebody's gonna come and pick out something, and that's pretty awesome.
yeah,
I made a lot of friends through this venture so far. I said I started out, I had a lot of friends buying my knives, and my friends were my customers. Now I've had new customers that have become
that are friends,
good friends,
followers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I talk to them very frequently. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like I've become close friends to people that started out as customers. So it's pretty
Right.
awesome as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it so for someone who's not super educated in blades, and I'm not talking just, we're not naming names or anything like that, but I mean, if I want to start collecting, or if I want to start looking for knives, and I'm going through the big box stores or pawn shops, that's my forte. What are some metals or things that I should shy away from?
Well, you're gonna find at almost every show now the big Blade show. So Blade show is basically a company, and they put on 3 shows a year.
Yeah.
And they do a pretty decent job of filtering out the mass imported Pakistan-made knives.
Right.
A lot of those, you honestly don't know what's in the steel. They're Damascus,
Yeah.
but they could be soup can and car bumpers. In all honesty, I've had people at shows go buy one and take their knives, and cut the edge off of one.
Yeah,
of those knives, like shave it. You know what I mean? So that's.
Right.
But people are like, oh, it's a Damascus knife for $100. I'm like, you're not getting a good knife. Like,
Yeah.
it's never gonna be sharp. You
Right.
know, so I would shy away from that. You know, if there's not a maker's mark on it, you know, that's usually a pretty key. And you can see on a lot of those, you know, imported Pakistani knives, whatever you want to call them. There's a there's a pattern to the Damascus. You can just tell once you've seen one, you know, like
Yeah.
that's it, you know. And
Yeah.
from then on out, you know that's one to stay away from. That's not, you know, if you're going to invest in a knife, you want to do a little bit of research. You know,
Sure.
like, look at that name, look up that name. How long have they been doing it? You know, does their website have a whole bunch of knives for sale that aren't selling? You know, it depends. Like if you're looking for something valuable, like in a pawn shop, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you see a knife come in, you're like, oh, is this? Can I make money off of this, or do I want to keep this? Well, you would want to look at
Right.
the availability of the market. You know, if you can go buy it off their website for $200, well, that, you know.
Is there a particular knife or a type of blade or a type of steel that you've seen? In my business, we have a variety of companies and manufacturers that get duplicated and or like dubbed them a lot. Cartier is one that gets dubbed a lot. Rolex a lot. Tag Heuer, a lot of watches get dubbed, and I'm sure knives do too.
Oh yeah.
Have you? Is there a particular brand that you've seen that gets where you see something stamped that's just maybe a little bit off, or something that somebody could look at?
I really can't talk. So I'm a custom knife maker.
I know.
And
I know.
in the world that you're
But
talking
you
about,
go to a lot of knife
absolutely,
shows too,
absolutely.
so I just
Yeah,
didn't
no.
know. And it's okay if
You
you.
know, there are things to look for, like, you know, if you're buying, say, a Benchmade folder, there's a
Yeah.
lot of counterfeits out there.
Yes.
And I see that in like the Facebook groups and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, I don't pay too much of attention because I have a couple Benchmades and I bought them from REI in their packaging, and I know they weren't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the Spyderco knives I bought. There's people
Yeah.
that fake those, but I bought my only Spydercos I have from Spyderco at the show.
Yeah,
You know, so
yeah.
I know. You know what I mean? So I don't. There are ways, absolutely, and there
Yeah.
are plenty of these buy, sell, and trade Facebook groups that you can be like, hey, what do you guys think? You know, and
Yeah.
people will, you know, say, show me this, and you post a picture of the logo or something, and they can say, yeah, yay or nay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if the deal's too good to be true,
True. Absolutely.
then you know, hey, there's something going on here. I mean, just this week we had a lady come into one of our locations, and she had a box, she had a Rolex, a box, and paperwork. And so the telltale deal is, hey, look, let's take the band off, and let's take a look at the serial number and see if it matches what Rolex says it is.
Mhm.
So is it this millimeter date just? Is it this millimeter oyster? Is this? And she refused to let us take the band off. And that's immediately like, okay, you're
Yeah.
trying to scam us.
Gotcha.
So if you don't know the game and know, hey, look, you're bringing it to us, you need cash, and this is the steps for us to do, it's most likely not legit.
No, I totally get where you're coming from. I'm just not that educated when it comes to, because that's going to be happening on your mass market knives. You know, I mean, nobody's going to counterfeit my knife necessarily. It's like I know almost personally everybody's involved in a way. You know, so it's
you don't serial number though.
No,
you're
I
just stamping them and just
So
logging
each-
them. Do you have a log?
I have a log,
Okay,
and
okay.
each knife comes with a card with a number on it.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Now this one doesn't. My production knife does not. It
Okay.
comes with a date of
Yeah.
basically when I received it, you know. But all the other ones do come with a card with a number on it.
Right.
So
We keep referring to this. Let's
take a look
let's
at
show it real quick. Thank you so much. So I commissioned you to make us a knife. I posted on Facebook. It's pretty late the other night. I was out of town. Look at this. Wow. So this is a production knife,
Yes,
correct?
it's a production knife.
Which basically you gave a company.
I
the
hired a
specification?
company. It's a
Okay.
company called Dauntless Manufacturing. They're out of North Carolina. Good guys, do really high quality work. Been friends with them for a little while. I've never actually met them, but talked to them
It
online
is.
a lot.
Yeah. Certificate of authenticity.
Yeah, with a little card
And
that says-
hell, look at this.
Now that doesn't come with every knife, but
Oh, thanks,
so
man.
I made those for the show, Late Show
Okay.
Texas, and that's
Okay.
one that I had left, so I thought I'd throw it in there.
Yeah,
for you.
man, I appreciate it.
Mhm.
So we've got.
You don't have to take those. So
Oh, I
pull
don't
it
have to
out. You just kind of. I usually use my thumb to kind of push the top there, and just kind of
Okay.
pops out. Right. It'll come out. There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Yeah, it locks
Look
in
at
place
this.
on the retention. Yeah.
We've got our
Yeah, there you go.
man. Little label there. Man, it's even got the little cup. That's amazing, man.
Couldn't get the text in there though. It was
Oh,
a
no,
little
no,
too
no.
fine.
I told you, I told you.
I know.
It wasn't a big deal to me.
You'll be
Oh,
surprised
man.
sometimes what the. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's wicked sharp.
This is sharp. It takes me back to the days, you know, I hunted 1 week a year since I was 13. And my uncle was the big sharpen guy. So we would kill a deer and then we'd skin it and then we'd quarter it pretty much all the same day, if not the next day. And we all had buck knives pretty much, unless occasionally we would have a skinner knife years and years later that had the hook. That's why I asked you, like, you know, is that what it's called? The hook?
The gut hook. is
Gut
what
hook,
they-
yeah. And I never carried one of those because I was always strong enough to pull it back and to break the breastbone. But as my dad and my uncle got older, it was harder and harder for them to do that. And so it was just easier for them to just kind of yank down
Yeah.
instead of me pulling. I was pulling up. And so, you know, seeing this knife reminds me a lot of him polishing. We had a you know,
Big
the
wood stone.
two blade kind of grinder,
Oh, okay.
polisher,
Oh, okay.
and then he, you know, on one side sparks flying, the other side polishing, and you know, he did that. That was his deal. He also did a lot of the butchering, and I learned how to butcher from him. And that's butchering mean take it off the bone, and a lot of that skill's just not very well known.
No, it's not.
Most people, they shoot a deer, they put it on ice. 2 or 3 days later, it's at the processor, and they're doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, last couple of deers I've shot, I didn't even field dress them. I just took them straight to the processor. And
Correct.
20 extra to field dress them because
Yeah.
it's so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And we're far down in South Texas. We're almost to McAllen.
oh yeah.
So
you got
we're-
pretty nice for a while.
Yeah, we're gutting it on the ground. It's like 85 degrees in November, and you're putting the guts in Wasatch bush or cactus, and one of these would be absolutely phenomenal in that setting because it'd be so much faster. And whenever I was younger, I would time how fast I could get it done. In some cases, you would put it up on tailgate. Sometimes you wouldn't. And then as I got older, it wasn't about time. It was about who was around you and all that kind of stuff. It would, you know, you have memories of each.
Oh yeah.
This is very well built, and I love the.
So always be careful. Like what you just did there, yeah. You didn't get yourself, did you?
I did.
Oh, you cut yourself?
Ah,
Oh, no. I think
yeah.
no.
But I mean, it's a phenomenal blade. I did get myself though.
Oh, you did?
Just
a little
barely
bit, yeah.
touched.
So when you pull it out, just pull it out, let it
Pull
go
all
out.
the way.
But always
Yeah.
be careful right here, or I can pull mine out and demonstrate. This happens
It
to a lot
kinda,
of people.
it's a little catchy.
People will put their hands right here and pull it out.
Yeah.
Keep your hands clear, just pull it out.
Okay.
You can even just pull the sheath off instead of pulling the knife out.
Right,
You know what
right.
I mean? These snaps, they're called pull the dot snaps.
Okay.
You'll see a dot on the snap right here at the front. They only come up that way.
Okay.
And they go back down, dot last.
And what are they for?
That's just for
Oh,
going
just
on
to-
your belt. But
okay.
a lot of people have gotten it and they couldn't get the belt. They try to pull it and they can't
Gotcha.
get it. You won't come off this way. You have to come off from this side and it'll come right off.
Gotcha.
So it's something to know about.
No, I barely touched me.
Okay. I probably have Band-Aids in here.
Oh no, I'm good. No, I barely touched me. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
I have a.
That's the fastest that I've ever not bled. I promise you that. So it just barely touched me. Awesome. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
One time, and I think he was holding it this way, and he pulled the knife out as soon as he got it. And this guy was a Marine too. Which was
Oh, yeah.
giving him a hard time, but he slid his finger. He was to the hospital within 5 minutes.
Man, that's literally the fastest that I've stopped bleeding, for sure. Very cool. So we talked a little bit about social media before. I could imagine that it's a little bit of a challenge for you to kind of get your product out, communicate. Just like me, I can't just go about posting pictures of guns for sale, right? Social media filters a lot of that, puts me in timeout for days at a time, and things like that. So what are some of the challenges that you having?
You know, I understand their rules, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I try to, you know, like I said earlier, I try not to sell on there, you know what I mean? I try to abide by their rules because it is a good marketing tool and it's a way for me to share what I do. And I've created a pretty decent following, especially on Instagram and stuff. But here recently in the last year, they just started hitting all us knife makers and they've been kind of relentless about it. You know, at first they were like, you know, here's 5 posts that go against our.
Right.
They just it's AI running it. And it's, they don't, you know, it's like they don't. You violated some guideline and they won't tell you what it is and there's nobody to talk to and you just hit an appeal button which doesn't do anything.
Right.
It puts it in the appeal process and then they deny it a couple days later.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just happens over and over. Well, at first you deleted those posts and everything was fine again, and that would happen every few months. But now here recently, it's just you can't do anything. So it's basically they're not blocking me, but they don't let me see. They don't let my content go out to anybody new. So it's only the people I have now that follows me, unless somebody shares something I have. So if somebody like say you share it on Instagram or Facebook, then new people can see me. But otherwise, you're kind of just locked down now, and it's kind of the way it's been, especially Instagram. Facebook, not so much. It's funny because they're owned by the same people. But you know, when you look at all your insights and stuff, you can see that they're really locking them down. So, in all honesty, I haven't even been posting a whole lot in the last probably month. You know, it's kind of nobody's gonna see it. It's kind of like and I don't want to say nobody. My followers, I need to still tell them I'm around and I'm doing stuff. You know, and so I'll be starting to post here a whole lot in the next month because I'm ramping up for the show. Show everybody what I'm making and how I'm making it and what's going to be there and stuff. So, but it has become a challenge here lately. At first, it was a big blessing, you know, because it's like a new way to. Yeah. Back in the day, my grandfather, we saw
free advertising.
Yeah, he had to send send me $1 and I'll send you a catalog, and then you know you had to mail back and forth, you know, to advertise or put stuff in magazines and things like that. And nowadays, which is fun, I bought a few old knife magazines in the past and found my grandfather and uncle's advertisements in them and stuff, which has been pretty neat.
Hey, podcast listeners, are you in need of some top-notch libations to elevate your next gathering? Look no further than Hoot and Holler